Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another Rin Reviews. Today, I am reviewing the brand new Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie. Now, I do want to start this review off by saying, personally, I haven't played any of the Five Nights at Freddy's games, and I'm not like a super fan of the franchise. I did watch the first movie. I've seen some of the theory videos, like here and there, but never got super into it. So take that with a grain of salt, knowing what I am going to give this movie in terms of rating. But now that that's out of the way, overall, I'd give this movie like a 5 out of 10. For me, it just felt very mediocre. One of the main things was in a lot of the advertising and a lot of what like Matthew Lillard was saying about the movie was that there was more scares, more like it was going to be a little bit more brutal, again, more jump scares, things like that. And it definitely did feel like there was a lot more like brutal kills, but it unfortunately didn't really show anything because it is PG-13 still. And I will say a lot of the jump scares were fairly predictable, but it did definitely feel like there were more jump scares in this one than the first one. I will say as well, probably another reason why I wasn't such a huge fan of this movie is because there is a lot of lore dumping, and it does feel like there is a lot of information thrown at us in this movie in a very short period of time. And again, as someone who never played the games and knows only a little bit about the lore, I necessarily didn't get a lot of the references. There were some references that I did still understand and appreciated, and I do think it is very fitting that they have obviously Matthew Lillard as William Afton and Skeet Ulrich as Henry Emily, knowing that they're partners and stuff. And it does have a little hinting towards them being partners and everything in the end credit scene. And also, speaking of end credit scenes, before we go any further into my thoughts, there are technically two end credit scenes. There is like a mid credit scene where it's actually showing us stuff, and then there's the end credit scene, which is more so just a voiceover thing over the very last parts of credits. I will also say I do really like the designs of the animatronics and stuff that they have in this movie, because they do have the like toy animatronics, which I thought looked very, very well done. And then also to go on top of that, they do have kind of like destroyed versions and everything of the standard animatronics. I did also think it was really cool that they had Josh Hutcherson's character using one of the Freddy masks to make sure the animatronics left him alone while he was trying to track them and stuff. Because if I'm not mistaken, I do believe that is something that happens in some of the games. I don't know which ones or if it's all the games or anything like that. And there is also the whole kind of storyline with the marionette that is in this movie, which I didn't really know kind of like a backstory or anything, and I don't know if the games are any different from the movie, but I do think it is a very compelling backstory and stuff, and comparative to the first movie with the villain kind of being like Matthew Lillard, William Afton, and not really having much motivation other than that he had killed other kids and stuff. I do think the difference of the marionette essentially being the villain of this movie actually having a good valid motivation to be the villain of this movie, I did really appreciate that. I do also want to say, for me personally, I enjoyed the first movie a little bit more than this one, mainly because another main issue that I have with this second movie is that it did feel like there was very little actual like content and stuff in the movie, and that there should have been more, and a lot of the content that was in it did feel really dragged out, but the movie itself also felt like really short. And I also don't think the ending was very great either, mostly because it was very abrupt, and also because of the fact that, according to what Matthew Lillard has said, is that this movie needs to make a good amount of money for them to make a third Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And to end off the second movie when you're not guaranteed for a sequel with a fairly big cliffhanger, in my opinion, is not a great move necessarily. So if there is a third movie and I rewatch this one and then watch the third one, maybe I will be a little bit higher on this one, knowing that there is going to be more stuff to it. But for me, the ending was just so abrupt, and the future of the movie franchise isn't very secured, so it ends up taking my rating down with that as well. But yeah, honestly, I would say if you like the first one and saw the first movie, to still go see the second movie. Also, because I do want to see a third one, I want to see what they would do with it. And I am very interested in them continuing these movies. So I would say definitely go watch it so that we can get more in this franchise in terms of movies. But I would also say if you are a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, you will probably enjoy this movie more than I did, because I've also been getting a lot of comments on other social medias about how more so the people that were fans really, really like this movie. So again, if you're a huge fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, you will probably enjoy it more than me at my 5 out of 10 rating. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.